In this video, let's talk about 5 guys who were the main antagonist in the Baki Season 4, which was released in 2019. Their goal was pretty interesting and stupid, which is to find defeat in a fight. The first one of these crazy guys is Speck, an escaped American convict who is 97 years old but for some stupid reason looks like Jack Hanma, who is 21. Speck is a psychotic serial killer with a malevolent sense of humor. Speck normally seemed to convey an almost happy demeanor combined with a humor attitude most of the time, while causing harm and destruction at the same time. He's a clever person, and aside from being a very capable combatant, he is very aware of his surroundings and uses everything at his disposal in order to gain an advantage over his opponent. He escaped from a submarine prison off the coast of Florida, USA, and killing all the guards stationed at nearby coast. He then traveled to Tokyo in the hopes of being able to find a worthy opponent who could defeat him. He is the funny guy who let himself be captured by the police, but when in jail, he just traveled around the city using his prison cell as a resting place only. Speck is able to easily break out of a maximum security submarine prison and swimming through 200 miles per hour underwater currents with no damage or strain, and then proceeding to kill the entire squadron of nearby prison coast guards in 5 seconds with no sign of fatigue whatsoever. Speck's muscular strength was extremely high, being able to compete with the other top-tier protagonists in terms of strength, speed, flexibility and stamina. Speck had traveled from the coast of Florida to Tokyo on foot in a matter of only a day, showcasing incredible stamina and speed. Speck, despite all this, was implied to be the physically strongest of the convicts, being able to easily break his way through prison walls and cell bars in only a few seconds. He was shown to endure the physical attacks of Japanese Special Elite Police Force Brigade, as well as their flashball projectiles, which have a force equivalent to a professional baseball player hitting a ball from 2 meters away without even flinching. He found his defeat by the hands of Kaoru Hanayama and falls into a coma, and is transported into a medical facility where the doctors reveal his true age, 97 years old. They also revealed that he has started to look his age just a week after falling into a coma, meaning Speck has lost most of his muscle mass and possibly 1 to 3 inches of height, just like every person does upon entering old age. But even at this state, he's somehow moving his body in such ways as swimming the butterfly stroke through thick liquids. His body has shown great recovery after his rapid aging. It is not known what happens next to Speck. Another death row inmate who escaped prison to find a suitable opponent to face him is Hector Doyle. He is a calm 25 years old person who usually does not show too much emotion except for small and confident smiles. Doyle is a skilled and experienced assassin who often outplays his enemies and targets, though this is usually because of his element of surprise when fighting. He has his own approach to combat. Doyle says it's fine for any to fight dirty, which including when someone brings a gun to a fight. It's easy for him to say that because his body is a weapon by himself. He has a metal blade implanted into his joints and controlled by a spring system that is inside his fingers. He had a bomb strapped on his chest that detonates upon physical contact, which is also controlled by his nerves. He also has a generator in his heart which boosts his strength. He also has a switch located in his ring finger that makes his spring-loaded arm shoot out with such speed and force that it causes the face of those hit by it to sink into itself, almost turning inside out. In other words, he is a literal cyborg. He even survived after being tossed on an electric chair, probably because of his cyber-like body. But to be fair, he showed himself to be pretty weak. He lost to Retsu in a fight, losing his eye in a process, then lost to Katsumi, and after that he was attacked by Yanagi and becomes blinded in the process. Oliver tracks him down in a cave and breaks his back with a bear hug, capturing him. He's currently in jail and training himself. He gained the ability to hear insanely well after being blinded, but he defended himself, and now his sense of touch is so good he can literally feel the vibration that sound makes to hear and feel the world around him to see. Kaio Dorian is one more guy of the 5 escapes who tracks down Tokyo's fighters. It is unknown how he became a criminal, but whatever crime he committed, it was bad enough to get him sentenced to the death by hanging. But it was not enough to kill him, and he escaped. Doran is calm and relaxed most of the time. Despite being a great Chinese Kenpo fighter and achieved the title of Kaio, Dorian somehow lost his faith in martial arts or just abandoned them because of his own ego. In battle he usually counts on his gadgets and dirty tricks to win. One of his favorite tricks is to suddenly start crying, bewildering his opponents and make them feel pity. He is an extremely experienced and skilled fighter who uses his environment and secret weapons to his advantage, as well as knowing a couple of languages and being able to manipulate his opponent's psyche in a battle. Of all the convicts, Dorian is probably the most balanced in terms of power, skill and cunning. This guy, unlike Doyle, showed himself real well in fights against strong opponents. Fighting a lot of main characters and being hardly damaged, he lost to Retsu, becoming mentally disabled. Dorian lost all the capability of fighting, which is seen in how he lost his fight in the Great Chinese Tournament without even attempting to land a single strike on his opponent, and only caring about losing his candy due to the blow to the head he received, which knocked it out of his mouth. He has managed to keep his endurance though, as he got up almost immediately after the match was over and walked away peacefully. In the one-shot Revenge Tokyo, he is still trying to mentally recover after his loss to both Doppo and Retsu. He undergoes an intense training of Chinese Kenpo while painting a picture. He paints standing up, having his knees bent as if in a Kenpo position. It turns out, however, that he is still obsessed with candies because he eats candies during painting and even his picture depicts a whole bunch of candies. Nevertheless, it is unknown what exactly is going on in his mind and his later fate is unknown. Sikorsky is the fourth prisoner. He is 27 years old, ruthless Russian killer. He is very deceptive and likes to play with his opponents. One of his methods is pretending to be outmatched only to attack when his opponent's guard is down. Not much is known about his past, family or childhood, but one of the prison guards said if he didn't turn to the criminal lifestyle, who knows how many gold medals he could get to the motherland. For example, it can be assumed that he was a member of the Russian army because of his military clothes. He climbed out of the missile silo that was his prison. As he escaped walking through a snowy storm, he encountered Alexander Galen, a powerful wrestler from Russia. Their fight was not shown, but it is known that the convict brutalized him, and then left a message that he went to Japan to no defeat. He showed himself pretty good against average opponents, but he is no match to the main characters. Sikorsky is an inhumanly powerful person. He was able to climb an almost entirely smooth wall for 100 meters. Using his palm strength, he can cut through the person's flesh using only his knuckles, which he can do by sticking out the knuckle of his middle finger and swipe at his opponents. Sikorsky angles his middle finger to a certain degree while striking, allowing him to cut open his opponents and give them damaging deadly wound that would lead to becoming scars. He fights Jack Hanma in a bathroom and later a telephone booth and loses. He is then kidnapped and taken to the fighting arena. He fights Jack again and is overwhelmed. Jack then decides to swap out with Gaia. After being overwhelmed by Gaia's technique, he admits defeat. He is back in prison and appears to be trying to improve his grip strength even more. He can now apparently grip completely flat surfaces and held onto a flat wall every night while he sleeps. The last one, but not the weakest one of the prisoners, is Ryuko Yanagi. He is a small 50-year-old man. In his debut, Yanagi seemed to be a very stoic person, but then it turned out he likes to use psychological games during his battles. He behaves towards his prey like a cat toying with a mouse. Yanagi often asks his victim if they know what the world's most poisonous gas is before he uses his technique on them. His mental toughness is extraordinary. He did a very painful procedure of dipping his right hand into a mixture of extremely lethal poison, infusing it with his hand to make it capable of transmitting the lethal poison on his opponents when he strikes them with it in battle. It proved that he can do a lot for his fighting path. In his younger years, Yanagi was a student of Kinimatsu, where he started to perfecting the technique known as Poison Hand. He was eventually imprisoned for unknown circumstances, but unlike the other escaped convicts, his crime prior to imprisonment were not the reason he was put on death row. It was because he used fellow inmates to practice his vacuum palm technique, killing them in the process. He was imprisoned in a bulletproof glass chamber that can endure the force of a missile strike. The prison guards begin to talk about him. At one point, Yanagi gets up and joins the conversation. After a while, he destroys the glass with his vacuum palm technique, murders the guards and runs away. For me, he is probably the strongest among all 5 convicts. The smallest of the convicts physically, he is later been shown as the most deadly. He is the only convict whose crime is known, that he killed a dozen men in a prison as a testbed for his new skill. Despite his skills, Motobe points out that Yanagi's reliance on weaponry has weakened his fighter's senses. Furthermore, his reliance on the poisoned hand also turns out to be a big weakness, as Motobe managed to chop his right hand off and then defeat him. He's managed to survive with only half of his face missing and his right hand replaced with a prosthetic hook after he's been cut off by Motobe. He's back in imprisonment. But after a while, a group of prison guards who are supposed to escort Yanagi to a mental facility proceeds to provoke Yanagi by taunting him. It was a fatal mistake. Yanagi gruesomely massacres the entire escort before escaping confinement. But I have one question. Why the f one of the most dangerous convicts on Earth get a freaking metal hook instead of a teddy bear in his hand place? Yeah, he's missing a hand, so what? Why the f he needs this metal hook? He is a prisoner and hook is a weapon, you know?
Alright, sir. Can you get up?
Yes, of course I can.
Me and none of them non travel on any trip. In the seat of corruption, me say me sit. Look like from corruption, them a benefit.